Happy Monday. Today we're talking all about 5 simple tips to make your LinkedIn profile stand out. So, more on that in a minute. How was your weekend? We had our first week of really warm weather in the Chicagoland area, Northwest Indiana. And I think spring is officially here in the Midwest. Crossing fingers, hoping it is. I've got my t shirt on, so I'm feeling it. It's our first spring in this house. So, the prior owners were actually really avid gardeners, and it's been fun to see which flowers are springing up all around the yard. So, time to get outside and do some yard work. Or maybe that's a task I can actually delegate to my kids and have dad oversee. We'll see what happens there. Now it is time for Mondays with Mindy. This is a weekly show on Mondays, you guessed it, where I talk about all things LinkedIn, pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I like to call the 3 Ps of LinkedIn. Do you have questions about LinkedIn that you want me to answer? Be sure to like this post, whether you're watching live or from the replay. Leave your questions below, and I will either answer them after the show or on a future episode of Mondays with Mindy. Just about all of the topics I do come from listener questions. I love listener questions because then I know what you are wanting to know about LinkedIn, and I can share those things specifically. So make sure to submit your questions and I will definitely answer them. So let's get to today's topic. How do you actually make your LinkedIn profile stand out? Now, this is a really big topic because so many of us have seen variations on LinkedIn profiles, from like the LinkedIn top voices in different areas to influencers in our industry to, our friend down the street who has just an epic LinkedIn profile. And we all aspire to have a great LinkedIn profile. I think that's probably something I can say generally speaking. I think everyone wants to put their best professional foot forward. And we know when it comes to LinkedIn that that's the place to do it. It's not Instagram. It's not TikTok. No, what's going on with TikTok. It's not Facebook. It's not Twitter. This is LinkedIn, and it's a special place. So for us to put our best professional foot forward, that all starts with our LinkedIn profile. That's the first thing that people see. And you've probably heard me, if you followed me for any length of time, I talk a lot about the profile because it is where it all starts. And not everyone needs much beyond a LinkedIn profile. Not everyone needs to become a LinkedIn superstar and post all the time or create thought-provoking content or use Sales Navigator like we talked about last week. It's really about dialing in your profile so it matches your needs, it puts your best foot forward, and it also attracts the right people to connect with you. It's really that simple. It's kind of like what we used to have as our resume, or people would post their CVs, or they would point you to their personal websites and show you their work. LinkedIn is kind of like that now. So it's even better for most people than a personal website. A lot of people don't even have websites anymore because their LinkedIn profile does the job. So when it comes to your profile, what can you be paying attention to? What are 5 really simple things? Now, we're not getting into the nitty-gritty, like the writing stuff today. We are going to keep it light. We're going to talk about 5 simple tricks that you can do to just give your LinkedIn profile a facelift. And I actually have slides that I'm going to share. So you'll get a sneak peek of some slides that will actually talk through the 5 tips that we are going to discuss. I'll also do a little bit of sharing on LinkedIn for a certain part so you can actually see what I'm talking about. And then you will be able to download the slides too. If you want a copy of the slides and you want to go back through and actually put this into action after this live stream, I highly encourage you to do so. So I will post a copy of the slides, or if you don't see it wherever you're watching this video, just message me or comment below and I will share that with you there. Okay, so before we get any further, hey there, for those who don't know me, my name is Mindy Rosser. I'm the founder of Mindi Rosser Marketing, and I have a group program called the LinkedIn Accelerator for those who want to go from 0 to 60 on LinkedIn with their profile and their network. We are already talking about the summer. I can't believe the summer is almost here. We will be doing another cohort over the summer, most likely. So I will post a link to the waitlist, or if you're watching this video, it should be right around this video, wherever you're watching this, a link to join the LinkedIn Accelerator waitlist if you are curious about getting a little bit more hands-on with your LinkedIn profile. I help business leaders who feel they are the best kept secret in their industry to become that go-to visible expert in their niche so they can get that next opportunity, grow their business, and scale their impact. In this live, we are talking about how to optimize your profile, of course. So 5 of my favorite LinkedIn profile tips that will actually help you stand out and get the attention of the right people. And if you are not looking at your LinkedIn profile now, I hope by the end of this live stream that you will look at your LinkedIn profile and figure out exactly what you want to do next. You don't have to implement all 5, but pick one. My challenge to you is to pick one from today's session that you are actually going to do after this. So go ahead and like this post, whether you're live or watching from the replay, to give it some social love. All right, so we are going to transition a little bit, and I'm going to share some slides. Let me make sure it works. All right, always fun. Okay, so here we are. So we are talking about your LinkedIn profile. So 5 different tips, 5 different sections, however you want to categorize it in your mind. The first one we're going to talk about is your LinkedIn headshot and your header. These need to be what I call on brand to attract. So if you are thinking in terms of, what does Mindi mean by on brand? Basically, they need to work together. It needs to look like you. So for example, I used to have a headshot. You probably can find it. Every once in a while it pops up, like I speak for somebody and I see like a really old this old headshot that just bugs me because I don't look at all that way. But basically, some years back, what I did was I was getting into real estate. And so I went and got these professional real estate headshots. So I literally did not have any clothes to wear. So I ordered some clothes, like professional clothes, and I didn't look at all like I normally look. I went to the hairdresser, had them style my hair. I had the whole facial, makeup, all of that done. And then I went and got my headshots done. Now, did they turn out really nice? They did. They did turn out really nice. But when I used those headshots on LinkedIn and on my online channels, it was very weird for people. And I could see a disconnect whenever they would meet with me in person because I do not dress up. You usually see me like in t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, a little bit more sporty. So I do not dress up too much for the most part for professional engagements. Of course, there are exceptions, but for the most part, I'm a bit more casual by nature. My hair also doesn't look like that anymore. So now I have locks. Before I had very curly hair and it was straightened for the photos. My makeup is never really too much, I don't overdo it in that department. It's just not my style. So when people would see me hop on a Zoom or they'd meet me in real life, they were like, Mindi? And it was the awkward feeling, or you would, how you get onto Zoom and then you take yourself on camera and off camera. And so that toggle on and off was very awkward, especially if they had never seen me in real life before, because if they had only seen my headshot, they were expecting me to look a little bit different than I did when they saw me. So really make sure that your headshot that you are using to represent you actually matches and feels on brand to who you are now, what you're doing now. Okay. All right. So that's my little shtick on the headshot and the header image and really what to pay attention to. So your LinkedIn headshot should be clear, it should be professional, it should be close up. A lot of times people will do like a full body shot and that's a little too much. What you want to do is nice and close. So just think, what are people tending to see when they meet you on a Zoom? So many of us are meeting on Zoom these days, even if we do work with each other in real life. So just keep in mind that your headshot should be almost kind of like what people would see in a frame on Zoom. All right. So here are some sample headshots and how do you look in real life. Okay. So as I mentioned before, make sure this matches what you look like now. It's really easy for these to get outdated, especially if you change your hairstyle, your hair color, the way you dress, the type of work environment you're in. You may be going from a less formal to a more formal setting. So if you are trying to go from being an entrepreneur and very casual into corporate, and you're looking for a job, you may want to dress up a little bit more. So just kind of keep these things in mind. Look at your headshot. Make sure it's not more than a year or two old. If it is, and if you have changed how you look significantly, make sure to update it. LinkedIn headers. All right, so this goes with your headshot. LinkedIn headers tend to be the best ones that I like and the ones that resonate with people are you in action, so you actually doing something, or your business branding. So just kind of keep in mind, like, okay, maybe you are a speaker. If you're a speaker, if you've been on panels, you in action, some action shots of you actually doing that is really, really powerful. If you're like, Mindi, that's not really me, seeing you like working in your business, working with other people, volunteering with groups in community, that is also a very powerful you in action photo, or you can just focus on your business branding. Now, if you go and look at my profile, which we will do shortly, you will see that mine is much more my business branding. It's not me in action. I tend to not do stuff in real life. I tend to do most of my presentations virtually. So I don't have like a big stash of photos of me on stage, razzle dazzling an audience. So I tend to lean towards my business branding. So here are some sample headers that you can just kind of get a sense for what you could do. So again, reinforce who you are and what you do. You see a lot of different examples here. We have some people who are authors, some people pointing to communities, some people with like kind of like a nice headshot, logos, colors, some people on stage. So be very creative with what you do here. You can use something like Canva, canva.com. Canva is fantastic. If you don't have a header, just type in like LinkedIn header, LinkedIn banner. I'm not exactly sure what it's under these days, but it will pop up some in the correct sizing. So don't worry about sizing, just kind of pop that into Canva and it will pop up some options for you and you can choose and kind of play with a design that works for you. Or you can be like me and just hire a designer and say, could you design me a header in these specs? And boom, you have a headshot or a header that works with your headshot. All right, so you want to match your LinkedIn headshot and your header image. Be sure they work well together. What I have seen a lot of times is somebody will design a really, really nice header image, and then there's something that is right behind in that image that is right behind the headshot that is important to the image. And so it looks really awkward because you're trying to see what the header image is, and it doesn't work well with the headshot. So make sure the two work together. That's why I had a designer, because they can kind of like offset things so it doesn't overlap and it looks nice. Even if you are looking at it on mobile, it looks pretty nice across the website, across desktop, across, all of the different devices. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're very much a stickler for details, make sure once you upload your headshot and your header image that you look at them across all of your different devices and make sure you're happy with how it looks. Okay. All right. So that was tip number 1, headshot, header, how they work together. Tip number 2, your LinkedIn profile video. So this episode actually came from somebody asking me specifically about this. So like, Mindi, can you please talk about that little video? What is that video? So if you go to my profile, if you go to some other people's profiles, I'll show you some examples. If you take your cursor and you kind of hover over my image, so we just talked about the headshot. If you hover over that headshot image, what will pop up is like a little video of me talking in front of a mango tree and introducing myself. And my hair looks a little bit different. I need to update that video a bit. And I'm no longer living in front of a mango tree or with a mango tree in my backyard. So I will update that. But if you watch that, you will see that that is a profile video. It kind of gives people a sense of who I am. It also is a way that you can introduce yourself to other people. And it just adds a layer of personality. Some people really like profile videos if you have them and they actually will watch them. Other audiences don't respond so well to them. If you have a C-suite audience, if you're trying to connect with high-level executives, that's probably this is probably not the best tip for you. You can probably just skip past this part and hang tight because we will talk about some things a little more relevant. But for those of you who are entrepreneurs, creatives, writers, any of you who do performance or speaking, this is a fantastic place to just showcase a little bit of who you are and your work. Podcasters also really, really good place for you to showcase that as well. So what do you do with this section? So what you want to think about is, first of all, who you are. So you want to make sure that you include that in the video. Okay. So make sure to give a greeting, talk about who you are, talk about what you do, maybe some topics of interest, maybe a fun fact, and then what you want people who are viewing this video to do next. Okay. So if you introduce yourself, you say who you are, what you do. It's kind of think about your headline, because your headline comes into play here. You can almost rework your headline and say it in front of a camera, and then end it with a good call to action. Typical call to action is let's connect on LinkedIn, or message me on LinkedIn, or if you have a link to like your website or something like that, you want to point them to that, then point them to that. If you are doing this as part of your launch, maybe you're doing a launch for a group program, well, you can plug your group program here. Just remember to update your video once the program is off and running. Okay. Tip number 2, record it naturally. So what you want to do, pull out your handy dandy phone. Now you can record this, like I could actually record, you can record a traditional, like the horizontal video from your computer and upload it. And I'll show you a few examples so you'll see what it looks like. But I tend to recommend use a vertical video. So literally just turn your phone around, natural lighting, or like for me, I could literally do it right where I am in my recording studio and make sure it comes across as conversational. So what you want to get across here is kind of, if people were meeting you for a Zoom, where would they tend to meet you? What would that environment look like? How would you be dressed? How would you speak? That's what you're going for here. Okay. So 30 seconds in length, record a vertical video. I have like a little, what do you call my gimbal? I have a gimbal where I put my phone on, or if you have a tripod, anything like that, or if you need somebody to hold it for you or just prop it during your 30 seconds, you just want to make sure it's not shaky when you are recording the video. So come across as conversational. All right. So here are some sample profile videos so you can see what it looks like. Okay. So I love Bryn. She's fantastic. And she's also really good on LinkedIn. So follow Bryn Tillman. She's awesome. But her video is very professional. I love how she comes across. And I think she is dressed very nicely. Like you can see in the background, it's kind of, you know how it's kind of just a little bit blurred. So the focus is a little more on her. And hers is very well scripted. Excellent video and excellent representation of what an awesome profile video looks like. Then we got Bridget in the middle. Bridget chose to record hers horizontally. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can see it looks very different. So if people are watching it, especially if they're watching it on their phone, it doesn't have that vertical video feel to it. So it does feel a little bit more formal. I actually like it. It feels like, you're sitting and having a conversation with her on Zoom. So there is no right or wrong here. It's just how you want your video to look. Okay. And then you'll see we've got Chris. And so Chris I think he's a podcaster. I think that's how I came across him. And he is really, really funny. And you can see he has some captions that come across. And his personality, you can see he wears a hat. It's not like super formal. So I think his personality and just his audience and who he's trying to talk to, really his personality comes across in this video. And you either really like him or you're kind of like, know if this is the right guy for me. So he is a little bit more polarizing, which is good. His audience likes this. All right. So here are some examples that you can look at. You can go watch them. You can make your own opinion, but I feel like these are really good representations of what you can do for your profile video. Now, to actually record them, before I get too far off track, you will actually have to go into, like, if you want to record a vertical video, what you'll do is you'll go into the LinkedIn app on your phone. And then you will tap that when you tap that headshot area, it will say, do you want to add a cover story? Then go there and you can actually record the video directly inside the LinkedIn app. That's what I did with mine. I like doing it that way. It's easy. It's a lot more seamless than uploading a file. But that's how I would recommend doing it if you're going to go the vertical video route. Okay. Now, section number 3. So tip number 3, your LinkedIn audio intro. This section is for LinkedIn created it for name pronunciation. So for those of you who have difficult to pronounce names, please use this section. I always reference this, especially if I am working with a new client or somebody books a call on my calendar and I'm like looking at their first or last names and I have no idea how to say it. I will go to their LinkedIn profile. I will see if they have a name pronunciation. When they do, I get so excited because then I can actually say their name appropriately. So for those of you with difficult to pronounce names, be sure to say your first and last name here, especially the difficult to pronounce parts. That is why it is there. Okay, now the secondary reason why many of us use it is we use this audio intro as a way to briefly state who we are and invite people to connect. So again, just like the cover story, with the cover story, we had the video, the talking head, and we are connecting with people there. There's something really special about hearing somebody's voice. So maybe you don't want to do the video. You're like, Mindi, the video feels a little corny for me, or my audience just wouldn't go over well. The audio intro is another way that you can do this. It's almost like a voicemail. So it's very short, 10 seconds, and you briefly state who you are and ask them to connect with you. So you have 10 seconds. And for those of you who have a great elevator pitch, this is a great place for it. Or you can even use your headline as a way to kind of restate your headline in a way that resonates. Make sure it flows. Don't just read it verbatim. That will sound very boring. But just say something like, hi, like for example, hi, my name is Brandon. I'm a senior project manager and I'm helping specific types of companies do content marketing, public relations, and social media. Let's connect. Something very, very simple like that will work well on LinkedIn. So you can keep it a little bit more formal, or you can, have some fun with it. But again, you got to talk pretty fast because you only have 10 seconds to talk. And you'll see that little speaker icon next to the APR and Brandon's name, the end of his name. If you click that, anybody clicks that, they can hear your audio message. So is everyone going to click it? No. But the people who do are actually very interested. So this is another way that you can connect with them using your voice. Okay. So that's a really, really neat way to do it. Take a screenshot of this if you want to try the audio introduction. It's a greeting. like hello, hey there, how's it, aloha, whatever you say, your name, and then your specialty. So 1 to 2 of these, and then invite them to connect at the end. So it's a really, really simple formula. Now, to do this, actually do this, you'll have to go again, pull out that phone, go to the LinkedIn profile app, and then you're going to go to that introduction section. So at the very top of the section, you'll be able to do it right in there. So right where you're editing all of that information, like your name, your headline, all of that stuff, you will go in there and it will say the name pronunciation. So just edit that and you can record right there from your phone. Okay. All right. So moving on to tip number 4. All right. So this is where we're going to hop onto LinkedIn because I want to talk through this. This is something that some people know, some people don't know. So I always like to point it out to those of you who may be either new to LinkedIn or maybe you're like, oh, I didn't know that was a feature, or I didn't realize I had all these settings wrong. So you really want to make sure that you personalize your URL. It's always hard to say that. So personalizing it, and I'll tell you what exactly goes there. And you want to edit your profile settings. Okay, so number 1, personalizing your URL. So when you type into LinkedIn and you go to your profile, what shows up? Do you have like your first name, last name, and then a bunch of like numbers and weird characters? Or do you just have like your first name and last name showing up? All right, so that's something you want to check. If you have never edited it, then you are going to have a bunch of funky numbers after your name. And that's okay. You can get rid of those numbers and just make it nice and clean. All right, so first name and last name is ideal here. Now, not everyone can get their first and last name, especially if you have a common name. So what you'll want to do if you cannot get your first and last name is you will want to add in either like your middle initial or your middle name, or maybe you have a maiden name that you want to add in there, or maybe you want to add in your specialty. So in my case, I could do Mindi Rosser marketing or something like that, so that would be a way to get in marketing if I couldn't get Mindi Rosser. All right, so you can play with it a little bit, but ideally you want it first and last name. A mistake I see people make here, they change it to their business name. So they have nothing about their personal name in their URL, and you want your name to be there. Even if you want to put the focus on your business, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, you still want your name in there. This is about you. This is not about your company. Okay. So make sure your first and last name. And then if you have to have a specialty in there, or if you have to add in another keyword or a maiden or middle name, that's okay. All right. I'll show you how to do that shortly. All right. And then you want to check these settings. Again, if you want to take a screenshot of this, want to edit your custom URL. I'll show you how to do that shortly. And then you want your profile's public visibility on. Make sure it's on. I have had a number of people who had no idea that it was off, and they're like, why can't anyone find me? I'm like, we found the problem. You also want to make sure your profile photo is public. This is another biggie. Some people have this toggled to only their connections. You want to make sure everyone can see your profile photo. And then click show on everything. I'll show you what everything is. And then you'll be able to view your public profile. So we're going to hop over to LinkedIn. Let me share this screen here. All right, so we are now on LinkedIn. Okay, so where are we going to go? Right here where it says edit public profile and URL. Click that. All right, now we're in the correct spot for everything I just talked about on the slides. Okay, so edit your custom URL. This is where you do it. You can click that pencil icon and you see custom URL has to, gives you all the criteria up here. So just type in what you want, ideally, and then click save. If it lets you save it, great. Like I got my first and last name here, no problem. That's because I'm Mindi with an I. Made it a little bit easier, and Rosser's not really a common name. And then I was able to get mine. But if you have to add in your middle initials here, you can. So just don't use any, obviously no spaces or weird symbols or anything like that. All right, now scrolling on down. This is where I said your profile's public visibility. Make sure it's on. Make sure this is green. And then you want to have the profile photo. That's what I was saying. Make sure this is set to public. Not just all LinkedIn members, it really needs to be set to public, okay? So that means if you are being searched in the LinkedIn search and people come from that, or a Google search, and they come to LinkedIn and find you, they can see your profile photo, okay? Then make sure all of this stuff is turned to show all the way down. All right, so it should be all green. You don't want to hide anything on LinkedIn. Just expect that everything that you put on LinkedIn is public. So people can see it and just click show. All right. And now if you look on the left, you can see that this is what my public profile looks like to people. And this just kind of gives you an idea of how other people are seeing your profile. It's not going to show up in exactly this order, but this is just kind of like, okay, are you happy with what is showing up here? You can kind of see your experiences and kind of scroll on down. Okay. So that's what my public profile looks like when, and just to be clear, this is when it looks like when shown on search engines or anything that's not on LinkedIn. It's going to look different on LinkedIn. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what is showing up elsewhere. Okay. All right. So those are the important things to know about your profile, your URL, and your settings. All right. If you have questions on that or any trouble, just reach out to me. Hit me up. I love to talk about this stuff. So always happy to troubleshoot. All right, so we already did that. We already took a look, and making sure our LinkedIn profile is visible to all the right people. As long as it's all click to show, everything's public, then you are good to go there. All right, so let's talk about tip number 5. Here we are. Your LinkedIn contact info. So you're like, really? Your LinkedIn contact info, Mindy? Of all things, like one of the 5 tips you picked was contact info. Yes, and here's why. When somebody is really interested in getting to know you, they are going to scan and look at your profile. They're going to want to reach out to you afterwards. So, if they want to reach out to you, a lot of people, we're just trained to go straight to the contact info. If you bury your contact info in your about, like if you in that about section, or maybe it's buried under your experiences or other places, people are, they're not all going to dig through all those sections to find it. Everyone expects to find your contact info in the contact info section. So even if you have it elsewhere on your profile, which is not a bad idea, it's a good idea, you still need to make sure your contact info is complete. Okay. So that's why it's really, really important, because people who are really interested go straight for the contact info. All right, so what should be here? And I'll show you what it looks like on LinkedIn, don't worry. So contact, you should have your website link. So make sure if you have a website, or for those of you who have lead magnets, if you're an entrepreneur, make sure to link to it here. Also, if you have a good opt-in, so if you're trying to build your email list and you're using LinkedIn in that way, put your best opt-in for your LinkedIn audience here. This is a really good spot for it. It can be elsewhere on your profile, but make sure it's in your contact info section too. So other contact info sections, this is what it looks like once you are on LinkedIn and you're like, okay, how do I update this? That little pencil icon, you'll click that and it'll allow you to pick and choose and change things in the contact info section. So you have your profile at the top, you have your websites, 3 websites. I have my blog, I have my podcast, and I also have an opt-in, so a lead magnet. You'll see my phone is listed there. Do I get spammers calling me? Yes. So if you do decide to put your phone number here, do realize that some people are going to scrape it and call you. I don't have too big of a problem with this, but if I was very high profile, if I was like an influencer type person, I definitely wouldn't put my phone number here. But I have found it to be helpful for some of my clients who are like, oh, Mindy, I didn't have your phone number and I found it on LinkedIn and we're good to go. So for me, it's more helpful than not to have it here, but do know that it can be scraped. Address. So I would just put your city and state. Now, this is an old screenshot. So if I put my most recent screenshot, I am no longer in Haleiwa, Hawaii. I am in Munster, Indiana. So that will be updated there. And then your email address should be there as well. Make sure it's your business email address. So if you have something like an old AOL, Gmail, edu, unless you are a professor or you're still in school and that is the best email address for you, make sure this is updated to your professional email address where you expect to get professional communication. If you want to put your Twitter, if you want to put your Skype, you can. I don't really use Twitter that much these days. I don't really use my Skype, but it is listed there just in case. Okay. Just make sure this is complete. The biggest thing here, email address, make sure it's the best email address for you. And then all of your websites, if you do one-on-ones or consultations or anything like that, where you're giving out your Calendly link, one of those website links could be your Calendly link. So you could, swap one of those out there as well. Okay. All right, so LinkedIn Confo, I can't talk today. LinkedIn contact info. So make it easy for people to learn more. And let's actually take a look on LinkedIn just in case you're like, Mindy, that was great, but can you show me again? So let's look on LinkedIn. So if we wanted to update our contact info section, what you'll want to do is you'll want to click this. And I know it's not exactly intuitive. Click that pencil icon to the side and you'll see this is my audio recording here. So we talked about that earlier, the audio introduction, the name pronunciation, that's what that is. So I can actually delete it here from my desktop if I wanted to. So then we also have pronouns. If you want to put pronouns, a lot of people do, and I think that's really smart. They're right here if you're looking for them. Headline, position, industry, education, all of that good stuff. And now you see contact info. So I was talking about this. So edit your contact info. And you'll see there's my profile URL. We already talked about where to edit that, so we know how to do that. Email. If you are trying to edit your email, just click off here where it has that little arrow, and you can update your email there. That's how you will do that. Phone number goes here, phone type, address if you want to put that there. Birthday, websites, you can see you can add another website here. Instant messaging, it's all pretty self-explanatory. When you're done, make sure to click save, because if you don't click save, all of the changes that you've made here will be lost. Okay, so pretty straightforward with the contact info section. All right, so that's it for today. We talked about 5 tips. So mostly about our header. So number 1, header, headshot. Make sure they're on brand to attract. So make sure that the two work hand in hand together. Then we talked about the cover story. So that little video that talks behind your headshot. Then we talked about the name pronunciation. So the audio introduction. So what to say there. I shared some tips and tricks for that section. And then we talked about editing your profile URL, making sure your profile settings are updated so people can find you. Very, very important. And then updating and reviewing your contact info section. So I know some of those probably weren't the most surprising. And some of those you're like, oh, those are kind of common sense. But sometimes we do need to be reminded about updating certain things in our profile. Sometimes things get out of date. Like I showed you the screenshot of mine. I'm like, I still had Hawaii on there, and I've been out of Hawaii for a few months. So just kind of make sure, give those things a look, make a commitment just to change one thing today. You just watched this, you spent the time watching this, so change one thing or change all 5, like go through, update, change them all, and your profile will be looking awesome. So if you're ready to get started with LinkedIn and take the next step to optimize your profile once and for all so you can start growing your network on the regular or land your next opportunity, get on the wait list for the LinkedIn Accelerator program. I mentioned this earlier, but you want to make sure that you join me when the doors open. We are planning on the summer of 2023 is as the next one. So whenever you're watching this, if it's not the summer, it will definitely be the fall. So just kind of stay tuned, get on the wait list, and you will be the first to know. So I will see you all next week on Mondays with Mindi. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below, and my inbox is open if you want to message me directly. That's it for this week. I will see you all next week. Bye for now.